Hi everyone, my name is Julie. This is Keep Calm with Books and Coffee. I talk about books on this channel, mainly books about magic, and if you want to see more of that, you can subscribe down below. Today we're going to be talking about how my R Fantasy Challenge worked out for this year. So I am really excited to go through these challenges today and to tell you how many I accomplished in the past year. If you aren't familiar with the R Fantasy Bingo Challenge, it is a list of 25 prompts that are put out on the subreddit of Twitter every year to challenge you to go outside of what you would normally read, to kind of cover all of these prompts in one way or another with fantasy, sci-fi, speculative, horror, any of those genres, in order to kind of expand your horizons and read new authors, because you are supposed to read a different author for each challenge, as well as only being able to do one reread, I believe. So I will link the 2024 challenge down below if you want to check it out. I can't wait to see what they came up with for 2025, but since we are back around to March, I'm cutting myself off here. I do think I could have possibly finished one more book for this challenge, but I decided that I wasn't going to push myself too hard. This was my first year participating, and I'm really happy with the progress that I made, and I am kind of have a better idea of how to tackle this challenge in the coming year, but I'm really excited to talk to you about this today. If you saw my TBR last April, none of these books are the same. I'm pretty sure everything that I picked out, except for maybe one book, it has changed since then due to DNFs or, just not working out, and me picking other books, me picking things that I was reading for other things, etc., etc. So I did follow the rules, but I didn't follow my TBR. So I'm going to go down through each prompt to tell you what I read and if I accomplished this prompt. I'm also going to tell you if I accomplished hard mode or not. Hard mode was an extra challenge on top of the base prompt, but I didn't attempt to do this for everything because this was my first year participating. I didn't want to go too hard, but I did try to pay attention to this and include it where I could. So let's jump into it. The first prompt was to read a first book in a series, and the hard mode was a series that was longer than 3 books. And for this, I read The House Witch by Delma Hawk, and this is a series that is longer than 3 books. So I accomplished this one, and I did hard mode. Number 2 was an alliterative title. This was a book where multiple words in the title begin with the same letter. So for this, I read House of Bane and Blood by Alexis Menard, which is a little preview for a project vlog that I have coming at the end of the month, but I did choose to include this here, and I didn't accomplish hard mode because I think you had to have 3 words or more, and Bane and Blood is only 2. The third prompt was Under the Surface, and for this I chose Into the Drowning Deep for a book where an important setting is either underground or underwater, and there were several moments that were important under the water for this. Number 4 was Criminals. Your main character had to be a criminal of some way, shape, or form, and for this I chose Little Thieves by Margaret Ellen. This is where my reread came in, and I used my reread here. And if you know this book at all, you know Vanya, our main character, is a spectacular little thief. Prompt number 5 was Dreams, and for this one I chose Call Down the Hawk by Maggie Stiefvater. I almost plugged in the Raven Cycle last year when I reread it, but this is the subsequent series for that. And since I needed my reread for Little Thieves, I decided to put the first Dreamer trilogy book on here instead, and dreams have to do with things since it is called the Dreamer trilogy. The 6th prompt was entitled Animals, so a title that had an animal in the title, and for this I chose Dragon Fruit by Makai Lucier, which I read last year, and for this I did do hard mode because it was an animal that was fantasy or sci-fi in nature. It was a dragon. Number 7's prompt is a bard, and the description is to read a book in which the primary protagonist is a bard, musician, poet, or storyteller, and for this I think I have stretched it the farthest by using Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle, which is a horror novel I read last year where our main protagonist is a writer for television, so he is a storyteller, but this felt like the furthest stretch for me. Most of my other ones fit pretty neatly into the boxes, and I ended up kind of using this one. I think it still fits. I'm not saying it doesn't. I'm just saying this one felt like the furthest stretch for me. Prompt number 8 was prologues and epilogues. Read a book with a prologue or an epilogue, and the hard mode was a book that had both, and for this I read The Name of the Wind, and I checked off hard mode because this does have a prologue and an epilogue. I finally tackled this fantasy book for the first time, so I was really happy to finally do that. Next up was self-published or indie publisher, and for this I chose Sanctuary by Ilona Andrews. This is a spin-off of one of their series and was published by an indie publisher. Number 10 was Romantasy, and for this I chose The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy by Megan Bannon, and I don't know if this fits the vibe of the Romantasy like genre, but it fit the definition that they gave us here, saying read a book that features a romance as the main plot. This must be speculative in nature but doesn't have to be fantasy, but this was fantasy with romance as the A plot. Number 11 was Dark Academia, and I'm so disappointed in myself that I didn't get to this prompt. I meant to all year. I have a couple of books on my physical TBR, and I think I put Babel as my choice here, and actually this is the one I thought I might get to before this challenge is over, but I just didn't quite get there, so we're gonna say that I missed out on this prompt. Number 12 was multi-POV. We had to read a book with at least 3 points of view, and for this I chose The Cautious Traveler's Guide to the Wasteland by Sarah Brooks. I think we had 3 or 4 points of view in this book, and it was a really interesting one. Number 13 was published in 2024, and for this I chose A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. This definitely had like a magical realism element to it. It wasn't pure fantasy, but it definitely had that element there. Number 14 was a character with a disability, and for this I chose Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. Our main character, Kissen, is an amputee. She only has one leg, so this ended up fitting hard mode as well since it was a main character that had the disability. So I read this for the first time last year and counted it for this. Then we actually have 3 in a row that I did not accomplish. Published in the 1990s, Orcs, Trolls, and Goblins, Oh My, and space opera. I did try to fill the space opera with Leviathan Wakes, but I ended up DNFing that. So I didn't quite accomplish these 3. Just didn't happen. Next up was Author of Color, and for this I chose Kindred by Octavia E. Butler that I read last year, and this absolutely blew me out of the water when I read it, as did the book that I read for Survival, which was The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. So 2 absolute winners for these prompts. And for hard mode, I did accomplish hard mode with this book because it was no super viruses or pandemics. This is a book focused on survival, but it is definitely about a natural disaster rather than a virus or pandemic. Number 20 is Judge a Book by its cover. Choose because you like its cover, and for this I chose Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. This also came out last year, and between the sprayed edges and the cover, I absolutely had to have this book and read it, so it definitely counted for this challenge. Number 21 was Set in a Small Town, and I chose Can't Spell Treason Without T by Rebecca Thorne. This was one I read and ended up being set in a small town after being set in a palace, I believe, so that's what I picked for this one. I did not accomplish reading 5 short stories for this, unfortunately. All year I had good intentions of picking up an anthology and I just didn't do it. I would really like to read the ones that I had picked out for this on my TBR though, so they are still on my TBR and I'm still like actively thinking about reading them. Number 23 is Eldritch Creatures, and for this I chose The Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. This has leviathans, which are these massive creatures that I don't really understand what they are, but they are very destructive in this world, and based on the description of a being that is uncanny, unearthly, and weird, this can be a god or a monster from another planet or realm and is usually beyond mortal understanding. And I think we talk about a few times in this book that the leviathans are like almost too big to be understood, and we don't really know how they work or why they do what they do. So this felt like it really fit for this prompt. Number 24 was reference material, which was a book that included something like a map, footnotes, a glossary, a translation guide, etc., etc. And I chose Voyage of the Dam by Frances White for this. And then 25 was a book club or read-along book, and for this I chose To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Monoquill Black Goose, which I read for my local indies book club last year, and this was one that wasn't on my radar until the book club picked it, and then I really loved it. But in the end, I ended up completing 20 out of the 25 prompts, which honestly I'm really happy about for my first time doing this and kind of having to figure out what kind of pace I needed to set myself for. I really did pretty well, I think, in the first few months, and then I dropped off, so this is something I'll have to pay a little more attention to next year if I do it again, and I'm really excited to see what prompts the group comes up with for next year. But if you have any thoughts or feelings or want to share anything about the books that I talked about today, please let me know down below. If you aren't feeling chatty and you just want to leave me an emoji, you can leave me any kind of fantasy or sci-fi emoji that you want, a dragon, a spaceship, whatever you're feeling. And if you want to see me again, go ahead and subscribe down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!